This is Inside the Right. So, Tim, we're coming off of a massive fundraising haul by Joe Biden, who took in $25 million from one event in New York that was with Presidents Obama and Clinton. That was more money than Donald Trump raised in all of December and all of January combined. Biden also reportedly has more than 3 times the amount of cash on hand as Trump. We hear about this money like in a nebulous sense, but how important is it actually? How important is this money advantage that Biden has right now?
I think at this scale, it's important. I am more pessimistic than your kind of average political consultant about how important money is. I think particularly at the presidential level, I think a lot of times there's like a law of diminishing returns on, you can just see this in your own life, right? Like you see an ad, eventually it's like, how much are these ads persuading me anymore? People start to tune it out. But that said, we haven't really had a presidential campaign with this disparity in a long time. And really since it was the first Obama campaign in '08, where he had a huge disparity in fundraising advantage over McCain. And that obviously made a difference in '08. And I think it's going to make a difference now for Joe Biden, and here's why. Because there's a group of voters out there, some from the left, and then some from the center right, that are just kind of iffy on him. Right. And that are showing up in polls as being disapproving of him. And some of them are saying they're for him, but some saying they're undecided. Joe Biden can now go out and message to those voters with advertising. He can frame up this race by addressing their concerns about age, talking about his accomplishments, which a lot of them don't know about, infrastructure, chips, etc. While Donald Trump isn't doing anything, right? Like Donald Trump doesn't have enough money to advertise, to counter advertise to them. He really isn't doing a lot of events even, because events are pretty expensive. And so I do think that's giving Biden an advantage that we haven't really seen at the presidential level in a while.
Well, what else does the money go to? Like it goes to ads. What else can it be used for?
Yeah. So, I mean, TV ads are the most expensive, and that's the highest. That's the greatest percentage of where the money's going. And then obviously the digital ads. You also have grassroots. I think the Biden announced 10 offices in North Carolina. Now, this stuff, that only matters on the margins, but the margins have mattered lately. You've seen a couple of those states in 2016 and 2020 that were decided by, 10, 20, 17,000 votes. In a state like North Carolina, having a grassroots campaign versus not having one can be a 10, 15,000 vote difference. So, in a close race, I think that could be very important. And then I think on the Trump side, more than on the Biden side, Trump spent a lot of money on his events, right? And that was a big part of how Trump got his message out, right? He had these huge rallies. The plane is flying in, the music, the set, right? Like Trump has kind of a Hollywood persona, maybe a D-list Hollywood persona, but he's attempting to have a Hollywood persona, where Biden's events are more intimate. But those Trump events are expensive. Right. And if you've noticed that his schedule has gotten a lot lighter lately, the Biden campaign was trolling him about this yesterday, actually. And part of that is the legal obligations. Part of that is that he's old and wants to golf. But I think the money crunch is part of it. And the events were a big way for Trump to organize, and draw new supporters, or maybe not new supporters, but draw people that are not really engaged in politics day to day, kind of into his cause.
Well, the irony of this, too, is that there are a lot of people who blame Hillary Clinton for not visiting Wisconsin, for example. And that's what they blame her loss on. And now Donald Trump is doing the same thing. He's not opening up any field offices in states like Michigan, for example, where Biden just opened up 8 field offices. So they saw what went wrong in 2016. And in a weird, bizarre turn, they're kind of replicating Hillary Clinton's strategy here, as opposed to what Biden is doing. Tim, what about earned media? Like Trump farts and the media listens. So won't that to some degree offset the financial advantage that Biden has?
I do think so. And this was particularly in the primary. In the primary, there was a lot of discussion about this because DeSantis had a fundraising advantage. And I was saying that that doesn't really matter a whole lot because Trump gets into conservative media so easily. I mean, the mainstream media covers him too, but especially conservative media. Literally any bleat he puts out on social media, it's like, okay, Newsmax is doing a segment on this now. Yeah. And so it was so easy for him to communicate with the core primary voters, without having to spend any money to do so. And that was really true even in 2016. We saw that on the Jeb campaign where we're running ads on Fox and Fox is just running free media for Trump constantly.
Yeah.
In a general election, though, again, now he's getting free media, but that's reaching highly engaged audiences, right? It's reaching people that watch political news.
And they already have their opinions, settled in terms of who they're going to vote for, probably at this point.
Yeah, most of those people have already picked a side. And there's a small handful, really, of my people, some of the Nikki Haley voters that might be kind of on the fence that are highly engaged. But most of those people are pretty set. So the people that you're trying to reach with paid in a general election are people that don't really watch the news, that they're watching sports podcasts or Bravo or whatever it is. And so the only way to reach those people a lot of times is through paid, because they don't care. They're not reading the social media posts, reactions to Trump's latest outrage.
Yeah. Tim, do you think the fact that Trump is so openly using his campaign funds to pay his legal fees has an impact? Like, is it possible that his donors have kind of smartened up and recognized where their money in actuality would be going if they gave it to him?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure about smartened up, but I do think that he's bled people dry. And there is a limit to the pie here of people who are so MAGA that they want to give a rich guy money. You know what I mean? Like he's got there. If you think about the concentric circles of his support, like there's a core MAGA group that loves Donald Trump so much and hates the media and hates the left so much that they'll give him $10 because it makes them feel good. Like it's like a personal FU to the Trump enemies. But then there's a next segment out of people that like Trump, but they're not giving him money. Like they don't want to give that. Like he's rich. Like why are they giving him money? Right? Like they're not as deep into the cult. They're not as obsessed with politics. And so I do think eventually that like inner circle, you start to run out of people that are available for donations. So I think that people get more engaged as we get closer to November, but then it's kind of too little too late, right? If you're raising this money in October, November, and it's not too little too late to pay your lawyers, and Trump will definitely steal their money and give it to lawyers. But to be useful in a campaign, you really need to be raising it now, and he's clearly struggling to do so.
Well, it does seem like, to your point, that he is bleeding his supporters dry. I mean, he's been hawking Bibles and shoes and NFTs, and I do feel like to some degree that can like wear down his support. I mean, you can only pull so much blood from a stone, right? So, but in terms of, I guess, the bigger dollar donations, those people have to recognize, the people who are really propping up Trump's financial campaign, those people have to recognize, like, even if people want to give money for a Bible or shoes or his NFTs or whatever, like the people really propping up his campaign, do you think that those people recognize, I mean, those are smart people. I mean, they have to recognize that the money that they're donating is not going to go to like field offices or anything like that. He's proving that it's going to pay Alina Habba and Chris Kise, and probably to some degree going to E. Jean Carroll or his New York fraud verdict. Right.
Yeah, it's a cash transfer to shitty lawyers, from rich people. And a lot of rich people don't want to make a cash transfer to bad lawyers. So, look, here's the thing. The small dollar donor, I think, is a more relevant thing for Trump, because Trump's never done that well with the big donors, right? Like the big Republican donors were ever in his camp. The question is, were they going to come over eventually reluctantly? We saw a little bit of a sign that today. One Nikki Haley donor said that he was going to give to Trump now, this guy Eric Levine, over Jewish stuff, which is nonsense and totally BS. So, there may be Trump can be there are some new people potentially that he could add, but it was never really a strong suit anyway. And this is why, I don't know if you noticed this, but he's like gone on CNBC lately. Trump knows that he needs money from these people. And that was not what Trump was doing in 2016, like asking rich people for money. But the fact that he feels like he has to now, I think shows that even they recognize that like the small dollar cash cow that has powered Trump since 2016, might I'm trying. What's the right metaphor for the cash cow? The cash cow is not giving out any more milk. It's
milk dry, yeah.
It's drying out.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll obviously stay on top of this as we have as this money situation continues to progress. For those watching right now, if you want to support Tim and the work that he does, please subscribe to The Bulwark. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. This way, we grow this pro-democracy ecosystem that we're building right now. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Tim Miller.
This is Inside the Right.
A little bit of more Marjorie Taylor Greene and a few more, you're going to have a lot of Republicans running our way. Isn't she amazing? Oof. Ours is the reason reason she was very specific. I shouldn't digress probably, but she was very specific recently, saying that a poor mother who lost 2 kids to fentanyl, that I killed her sons. Well, the interesting thing is that fentanyl they took came during the last administration. And then there's Senator Rick Scott, the guy who's been saying for a year he wants to cut Social Security, Medicare, now says, never mind. That's what he's saying. And he says he actually agreed with us all along. He really didn't mean what he'd been saying. Well, like I said, I believe in conversion. Maybe they found religion. I sure hope so. But I'll believe it when I see it.
Oh, nothing, just Joe Biden handing Marjorie Taylor Greene an L in public. I've made this point before, and I'll make it again. There is a reason why I cover Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I think it's on full display right here. Because I know a lot of people say, don't give her the attention, that's exactly what she wants. Here's the thing. If Republicans decided to elevate an extremist like Marjorie Taylor Greene to the top of the Republican Party, then far be it from me to help them by hiding her. If they want her to be the face of the GOP, then I will make sure that everyone knows that she is the face of the GOP. I'll make sure everyone knows that when you cast a ballot for Republicans, you are helping embolden the woman who said that 9/11 was fake while QAnon was real. That wasn't my decision, it was theirs. And obviously Biden knows that too. Hell, he literally admitted the whole premise of it. The more that Marjorie Taylor Greene is out there, the more Republicans will come to the Democratic Party. He's obviously not adverse to that, and he's also obviously not going to go out of his way to sanitize that party for them either. Again, it wasn't Biden's decision to empower Marjorie Taylor Greene. He's not the one who forced her to become best buds with the new Republican Speaker of the House. He's not the one who gave her committee assignments. He's not the one who's deathly afraid of crossing her. That's the GOP. That's her own party. So if Biden's acknowledging objective reality, that's on the Republicans. And to be clear, if Joe Biden, who is deferential to the Republican Party, in my opinion, to a fault, if even he's willing to come out and highlight Greene's absurdity, then that should make it pretty clear that this woman is out of her mind. Biden goes out of his way to make sure that Republicans are brought into the fold, so the fact that he's out there laughing at her really does say something. And so in this instance, Greene had taken to Twitter writing, "Listen to this mother who lost 2 children to fentanyl poisoning tell the truth about both of her sons' murders because of the Biden administration's refusal to secure our border and stop the cartels from murdering everyday Americans by Chinese fentanyl." Only one problem here. The deaths that Greene is exploiting here for a political win against Joe Biden happened on July 29th, 2020. And Joe Biden wasn't president in 2020, Trump was. But now that we know just how disqualifying she believes the president's handling of the border was during that scenario, I'm sure she'll be just as hard on Trump as she was on Biden. Yep, any day now. I should note too that when Daniel Dale, fact checker for CNN, reached out to Marjorie Taylor Greene's office about this tweet blaming Biden for fentanyl deaths while Trump was president, Greene's spokesman responded by saying lots of people have died from drugs under Biden and said, quote, "Do you think they give a fuck about your bullshit fact checking?" Just in case you were wondering whether her staffers were any different than the person they work for, the answer is no. And while Biden took aim at Greene here, she wasn't the only target. He also brought up another Republican who's given the left no shortage of ammo against him.
And then there's Senator Rick Scott, the guy who's been saying for a year he wants to cut Social Security, Medicare, now says, never mind.
Rick Scott, who did his own party no favors by releasing a plan that would sunset all federal legislation after 5 years, which even the most naive person on earth understands would be a vehicle for Republicans to refuse to reauthorize earned benefits programs like Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. And this wasn't just any errant Republican senator. Rick Scott was the Republican in charge of retaking the Senate. So when he releases a plan like that, it counts for something, which is probably why the rest of his party was so pissed off. It's not that they disagreed with him, it's that they didn't want Americans to know. If nothing else, it's become pretty clear that Republicans aren't exactly fans of transparency. And of course, some of them came out and clutched their pearls at the very notion that they ever wanted to cut your earned benefits. But then, don't forget that they're all literally on tape admitting it.
So that would potentially sunset programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security.
Let's talk about Medicare.
But Senator, hang on.
John.
So it's not a Democratic talking point. It's in the plan.
Entitlements ever be on your plate?
At some point they will be. That's actually the easiest of all things, if you look.
We should try to look at entitlements, look at restructuring Medicare.
What they need to be doing is looking at entitlements. Look at Social Security. Look at Medicaid. Look at Medicare.
Turning Medicare into a voucher system.
It's a really good start.
Our entitlement programs, there's no doubt that we have to wrestle this beast to the ground.
What's going on with the debt?
It's very disturbing, and it's driven by the three big entitlement programs that are very popular: Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid. Hopefully, at some point here, we'll get serious about this.
I'm here right now to tell you one thing that you probably haven't ever heard from a politician. It will be my objective to phase out Social Security, to pull it up by the roots and get rid of it.
Tell me if you're willing to cut spending for Social Security.
I think everything has to be on the table.
So you are willing to cut money?
I think it's absolutely imperative.
What about Medicare?
I think it's absolutely imperative whether it's Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid.
Yeah, that pesky little strategy of literally just acknowledging what Republicans have been saying out loud for years. And by the way, just one more note on Rick Scott, since he apparently fashions himself some protector of earned benefits these days. Rick Scott himself personally oversaw the largest Medicare fraud in U.S. history at the time when, as CEO of Columbia HCA Hospital, his company billed Medicare, Medicaid, and other federal programs for tests that were never ordered, attached false diagnosis codes to patient records to increase reimbursements to the hospitals, claimed non-reimbursable advertising costs as community education, and billed the government for home visits to patients that didn't qualify to receive them. The hospital company was fined a staggering $1.7 billion, which was, at that point, the largest healthcare fraud fine ever levied by the Department of Justice. And Rick Scott, trying to escape accountability because, of course, resigned as CEO fewer than 4 months after the investigation became public. So when he pretends to care about the integrity of these programs, just remember that he already undermined those programs once. He already stole money from Medicare and Medicaid, programs that service the elderly, the poor, the disabled, and the sick, so that he could line his pockets as the CEO. That's who Rick Scott is. He's not the guy who's going to protect your earned benefits. He's the guy who's going to sell you off to the highest bidder because he already has. And look, I know that it's easy to make fun of people like Rick Scott and Marjorie Taylor Greene because they offer a very, very target-rich environment. But the fact is that they're not some fringe members within the Republican Party. They represent that party exceedingly well. And at this point, it's the Mitt Romneys who are actually fringe in the GOP, not the Marjorie Taylor Greenes. So again, I know you're tired of hearing about Marjorie Taylor Greene. I know that we all kind of get a little bit dumber every time we hear her speak, but that's the point. We didn't make the mistake of empowering Greene, they did. And if that's who they decided to elevate in whatever devil's bargain they struck, then I'm happy to make sure that everyone watching knows who she and her party really are. And from the looks of it, that is exactly what Joe Biden's planning on doing too. Before you go, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, please make sure to subscribe to my channel. You can click the thumbnail right here on this screen. And if you want to support my work even further, the best way is to subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. There you can check out my interviews with major players in the world of politics, including President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, Katie Porter, Jamie Raskin, and so many more. Plus other interviews that live exclusively on the podcast. That link is also right here on this screen, or just search No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen wherever you listen to podcasts.